We like to call it the Supernatural Hour. And now, our hosts.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a special episode of the Supernatural Hour. I'm Tim.
I'm Raven.
Jeff.
And Chad.
Tim, you sound super sexy with that low voice. I just gotta add that little note there.
I wish I had this voice all the time.
So we are bringing to you today what we like to call our Halloween episode, and I think it's going to be super fun.
It is going to be super fun. So yeah, this week we are talking about, like I said earlier, some of the myths and urban legends behind Halloween. So we'll start out with kind of a brief description on what Halloween originally was, and that was the celebration of Samhain. It was basically celebrating like the last day that you could harvest.
Yeah.
And they would light these like giant bonfires, originally called bone fires, because they would throw the bones in the fire, and I believe they would talk about like the things that they're letting go for the year and getting ready for the harvest or the wintertime. A lot of the traditions that we have around today, some of them have been around for about 2,000 years. Some of them are more modern traditions. A lot of the stuff actually came from Ireland, and they brought it over here to the States when they had I believe it was the potato famine, and they all started immigrating to the U.S. They started bringing some of their traditions, and one of those being jack-o'-lanterns.
Now, I think this one's super interesting.
So
but continue.
Originally, what they did was they carved turnips because they were readily available in Ireland. And when they got here to the States, not so much. That's why they switched to pumpkins, because those were more readily available.
Okay, and I have to say, I think about, because if you're like me, every year you carve the pumpkin and you carve it too early, and then by the time Halloween gets here, it's this rotted, mushy, shriveled lump on your porch. But I was thinking they must have carved the turnips differently, because I would probably have a nervous breakdown trying to scoop out a turnip like you would a pumpkin.
The other day I was actually seeing something that someone else did, and it was for making like shrunken heads out of apples. And I wonder if that stems from carving turnips, because turnips aren't very big. They're just a smaller root vegetable about the size of like, your fist, or a little bit larger. And these shrunken head apples, you peel them, you soak them in like a water salt mixture for 15 minutes, you carve them, and then you bake them for like 15-16 hours at 200-degree heat, and just desiccates. And when it's done, it's all shriveled up like it's been sitting out on the porch for 3 weeks. And I wonder if that has any ties to the whole turnip thing. But I thought it was interesting.
We should look into that. I know I used to do that in elementary school.
Yeah.
Like, we'd carve them up to make them look like witches for Halloween.
Yeah.
But so the tradition of carving jack-o'-lanterns actually came from an old Celtic folklore. There was a drunken farmer named Jack who had tricked the devil.
Jack the Drunk.
Yep, Jack the Drunk. So I guess he had actually tricked the devil, and this resulted in him being turned away from both the gates of heaven and from the gates of hell after he died. Now, having no choice but to wander around the darkness of purgatory, he made a lantern from a turnip and a burning lump of coal that the devil had tossed him from hell.
So it was actually carved out. That's interesting.
Yep.
Wow, that's
so yeah, it was carved out, and he put the lump of coal inside.
Some very intricate knife work.
That's how he made the lantern. So.
Oh yeah, I would never have. If someone said, "Here, carve this turnip," I would have said, "Oh, heck no."
Maybe turnips were larger back then. I don't know.
It's possible.
Yeah. I don't have that kind of patience.
So, as the story goes, he actually used the lantern to guide his lost soul, and such the Celts believed that placing jack-o'-lantern outside would help guide lost spirits home when they wandered the streets on Halloween. Originally, using a hollowed-out turnip was with a small candle inside a jack-o'-lantern. Frightening carved faces also served to scare away evil spirits.
Yeah.
But like I said, when the potato famine of 1846 forced the Irish families to come to North America, they brought that with them, and like I said, they switched to pumpkins because turnips weren't really a thing that was readily available here in the States.
Cool.
Well, and pumpkins are just so much easier to hollow out and carve.
Some of the other things that we have are black cats with Halloween. I know a lot of people, they look at a black cat, they see it walking down the street, especially Halloween. You associate it with bad luck.
I mean, that's more superstition than like a Halloween thing, isn't it? Like if you see a black cat, yeah, it's supposed to be like a bad omen.
Yeah, and as I remember, and I hope I'm not stealing your thunder, but I think the reason black cats were considered evil is because they were either associated with witches or were witches.
Yep. So what they thought they were was a witch's familiar, which is basically like an animal that kind of links them to the devil, I believe.
Interesting.
Yeah, I think I heard that the witches would avoid detection by turning into a black cat. They'd be like, ooh, someone's coming, we don't want them to see us.
Yeah,
they'd go all McGonagall on you. Poof.
Usually elderly, solitary women were accused of witchcraft and their pets were said to be their familiars or their demonic animals that had been given to them by the devil.
Cool.
Another medieval myth that told Satan turned himself into a cat when socializing with witches. But nowadays, black cats, they're not really synonymous with bad luck and mischief everywhere. Actually, in Ireland, Scotland, and England, it's considered good luck for a black cat to cross your path. So that's kind of why black cats are sort of associated with Halloween, because when you think of witches, nowadays anyways, you're thinking more of Halloween time, as opposed to when the witch trials were going on, not just here in the States, but throughout all of Europe as well. I mean, that was just kind of a year-round thing. But then, as time goes on, everything kind of gets lumped into with Halloween.
And, I'm not a cat person, but every black cat that I've come across, they've been super nice, too. I think they just have kind of a bad stigma associated with them that, I mean, I've seen even like shelters saying, we have a special rate on any animal that's black, particularly cats, because I think people just don't want to adopt those kind of animals because it has that bad rap associated with them.
So, we're gonna, Halloween, one of the reasons why Halloween is, in my opinion, the best holiday ever is because you can be so creative with it and things have just come from everywhere. We're gonna get back into some of the more traditional Halloween stuff, but one that I thought was fun was, women back in the Victorian times would actually use Halloween as a way to look into the future. They felt like at the time, kind of the veil between us and the spirit world was extra thin on Halloween. And so the young women in the Victorian times would get really obsessed with finding out who they were going to marry. And in Ireland, for example, if there was a cook that was kind of a matchmaker, she would take a ring and she would bury it in the mashed potatoes on Halloween night. And the thought behind this was whoever found this ring, they would be the next to marry, or they would find true love there at the dinner. In Scotland at the time, fortune tellers would tell young women to name a hazelnut after each of their suitors, and then after they'd named them, they would throw the hazelnuts into the fireplace. And the nut that burned to ashes, rather than popping or exploding, represented the girl's future husband. The nuts that burned away symbolized a love that would not last. They would also peel apples, and without breaking just one big peel. And then they'd lay it down on whatever letter it looked like. That would be the initial of their spouse.
I did the same thing with like twisting an apple stem.
Right.
You twist it A, B, C, D, and then when it broke off, whatever letter, it's like, oh, right. That's the girl I'm supposed to marry.
Now, if you peeled the apple...
Did it work?
No.
Didn't work.
I don't remember.
You didn't marry someone named
I was like
Lena?
in 4th, 5th grade. 4th or 5th grade. Who knows?
Okay, but then it gets exciting, though, because if you're peeling the apple, and if that apple peel breaks, if it breaks in half, you'll marry that person, but he'll end up killing you at some point.
Oh, good times.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
So along with this...
So be really careful with that apple peel.
And then one other one is if they went into a room with a mirror, and it was dark, and they lit a candle, and looked in the mirror, at some point they would see their future husband standing behind them. So,
and if they didn't?
Then they would be killed by their spouse later.
A lot of these things don't really surprise me because, around that time, the Victorian era, seances were really quite in vogue. I mean, even like Mary Winchester, I'm not sure the exact times that she lived, but she had a seance room devoted towards doing that, and that was really a popular thing to get, people to come over and try to invoke, some sort of spirit that was there, and get some soothsaying, get some sort of like foresight into the future, and that was really a popular thing to do.
That's their entertainment back then. Now we just scroll through TikTok.
You've been to that. I've been in that room.
You've been in that room,
yes.
Yeah.
I would love to plan a trip with you and go out there and
I would love to go there sometime.
The Winchester Mansion is extremely awesome. It is haunted. There are ghosts there, including Sarah Winchester. She is there. From what Brandy said. When I first got there, it was weird because when we were in the gift shop area, I could kind of feel where some of the spirits were, and I didn't feel anything malevolent in that house. But when I actually got into the mansion itself, it was like I was shut off and I couldn't feel anything.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Brandy was still able to see and hear the spirits, but as soon as I stepped foot into the actual mansion, I couldn't feel anything.
They did do a live video on Facebook the other night, and I was a little disappointed because it came off as being very cheesy, and the host, the narrator, I didn't really care for him, but they really just jumped room to room to room, and at one point they had like this REM pod with lights on a table, and they kept freaking moving the table around. It's like, just hold the table still, just stay in that room for a few minutes and just
spirit a minute
see if we can see something happen. But it's like 30 seconds, a minute, move on to the next room, have some stupid narration. I was really disappointed.
See, the thing is like when you're there, they actually don't allow photography, so you're not able to take any pictures while you're in the mansion. Unfortunately, there's a lot of cool stuff. They do have a room at the end of the tour where they'll let you take some pictures, but as you're walking through, they don't let you take pictures of anything. They also don't let you really touch anything. Like even the handrails, they don't want you touching them. Like they'll have stuff roped off, and
so to be able to have cameras and stuff set up there, that's kind of a special privilege.
It is a very special privilege. Just regular people going through and taking the tour, you cannot take pictures.
Yeah.
Like I said, they won't let you touch the railings. They don't want the oils from your fingers getting into the wood. They keep that house as preserved as possible, and it's a really interesting house. Just seeing how she had it done, and I wish you could still see it the way it was when she first started building it, because right now it's only like 4 stories. Before the earthquake, it was actually 7, and it knocked off the top 3 layers, and she just never rebuilt those.
And that's part of what she would use the seance room as well for, is that she would go in with blueprints and she would ask the spirits, like, what do I build next? What should I do next? So that's not surprising. But, I tagged you guys in that video, and I still have yet to do it, but I would love to be able to like watch some sort of live paranormal feed with Brandy there, because I would be really curious to see what's actually there, or if it's just, being hyped up by the hosts and the narrators. Ghost Adventures.
It is a very fascinating house, though.
Yeah.
Like I said, it is haunted. There are several spirits there. Most of them are workers that helped build the house.
Yeah. Some of them died tragically too, didn't they?
I think so.
During the construction?
I think so. I think there are some that died during the construction, but it was just, it's hard to not have someone die when you're constantly building for 30 years.
Yeah.
I think the one time someone stopped, they were fired instantly, and no one ever stopped again until she died.
Right. Hey, that's called job security.
They do a candlelight tour, I believe, every year on Halloween.
Wow, that'd be cool.
That would be really cool.
It's definitely one that I would love to check out, where I think they go with like a flashlight or candle. There's so many superstitions just at that mansion alone that we could get into, but I don't want to in this episode.
Yeah, let's talk about this another time.
But what else do we have, Deanne?
Stick a pin in it.
So as I was kind of, doing some studying, when you study Halloween, and Halloween's not the only thing that takes in a lot, but, there's stuff from the Druids, and there's stuff from the Native Americans, and there's stuff from, just all different religions. And, one of the things is when, there's a distinctly American, as in the Native Americans, indigenous peoples, they would have these celebrations called play parties. And they were public events, to celebrate the harvest like we talked about earlier, which kind of makes me think, Native Americans, that makes me think of Halloween. But the neighbors would get together, they'd eat, they would share stories of the dead, tell each other's fortunes, they would dance and sing.
That's my kind of shindig. Right,
and even you go back a little further, or I guess you jump into the future from, the Native Americans going into colonial Halloween festivities. They also did a lot of ghost-telling stories, mischief-making, which might be partly where trick-or-treats would come. They'd go around and play pranks on each other and blame it on ghosts.
I have a whole bunch of that we can talk on about the trick-or-treating and mischief night.
Oh, yeah. We'll go there here in just a second. But, just a lot of, it looks like in the Americas, with all the immigrants bringing all their traditions from their countries, just kind of really helped spark Halloween and make it kind of global. So, tell us, Tim.
So, originally what trick-or-treating was, in old times it was believed that during Samhain, the veil between our world and the spirit world.
Don't you mean Samhain?
Samhain. Yeah. Samhain.
Samhain. Okay.
None of us are probably saying it right.
That's okay.
Like Deanne mentioned earlier, it's when the veil between our world and the spirit world is thinnest. And then, they believe that that's when ghosts of the deceased could mingle and roam around, with the living. Now, as a superstition was that visiting ghosts could disguise themselves in human form, such as a beggar, and knock on your door and ask for money or food. Now, if you turn them away empty-handed, you risk receiving the wrath of the spirit and being cursed or haunted. Another Celtic myth was that dressing up as a ghoul would fool the evil spirits into thinking that you were one of them, so they wouldn't try to take your soul. In the U.S., trick-or-treating became a customary tradition in the late 50s, after it was brought over the Irish immigrants in the early 1900s. But before even that, they didn't really do a whole lot of trick-or-treating. They had something that they called Mischief Night. And basically, kids would go around and they would
do mischief.
They would do mischief.
That makes sense. Since it's called Mischief Night and everything. I think this Halloween's going to be especially cool because, it sucks that we're in the middle of a global pandemic, but it happens to fall on a Saturday, and it's a blue moon?
I think
or a blood moon. I can't remember. I know blue moon is when you have two full moons in the same month.
Yeah, it's the second full moon.
Yeah, but to have it land on Halloween like this, I think this is like the first time in 70 years. I don't know. I'm just pulling a number out of the air.
It's like the perfect Halloween aside from the pandemic.
Well, this year was also like the perfect Cinco de Mayo. Landed on a Taco Tuesday and all these things. But of course, we have
COVID.
Stupid freaking pandemic ruins it for everyone. Come on.
Well, if people don't, I'm kind of glad people don't still practice Mischief Night because that would just ruin things even more. But basically what Halloween was then was neighborhood kids would play pranks on each other, and it would be anything from egging and toilet papering houses to smashing jack-o'-lanterns. It was also called Devil's Night.
I've done that.
I think we all have.
I was just gonna say, has anybody here done tricks on Halloween to people?
As soon as it would turn midnight after Halloween, on November 1st, I remember going out with friends, driving around neighborhoods, and taking baseball bats to jack-o'-lanterns. I didn't smash any mailbox at least, so there's always a, silver lining to every cloud, right?
Well, see,
there's only pumpkins.
Back then,
you clean it up.
The Celts would actually, with the Samhain, they would celebrate with bonfires, games, and pranks. By the 1920s and 30s, however, that stuff became more rowdy, and it started leading into acts of vandalism. And it was possibly due to the tension caused by the Great Depression. That it was so bad, the vandalism and just everything that was going on. To try to kind of get rid of that, that's when they started handing out candy to bring back the whole trick-or-treating thing and offering stuff to the spirits.
To appease the wrath. So, Tim, you were telling us that there was something about owls. I've been patiently waiting to hear your research on owls.
Owls had something to do with Halloween as well.
I like owls. Owls are one of my favorite animals.
I kind of imagine them as being messengers. You look at like Harry Potter. Like maybe there's some sort of
And
omen,
Zelda.
messenger.
Did you ever play Zelda Ocarina of Time?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's an owl there too that would give you messages.
So yeah, that's totally the opposite of what they actually believed back then. So because of the feathers on their heads, it made them look like little horned devils. And some of the Greek and Roman superstitions claim that witches could actually turn into owls and suck the blood of babies. Others said that owls. Oh, I guess this is right on this one. This is
really morbid.
Well, see, then it goes back to what you were just saying. Owls were messengers for sorcerers, and if you heard a hoot of an owl, that meant a witch is coming.
Ooh, spooky. Kind of cool, spooky, but spooky nonetheless. So Halloween, we've kind of been talking about things in the past, and we may revisit some stuff in the past, but as I was doing research for this, there's some modern stuff that's kind of interesting, and sad. There are several different stories, 2 or 3, around the country where people have decided to take their life, and they've hung themselves, in public, and I don't even know how to say this without sounding horrible, but, they would do it in public places right around Halloween, and people thought it was Halloween decorations.
Yeah, I've heard about stuff like that.
And they'd be there for the longest time until they finally realized, that someone was missing and put 2 and 2 together. And
hey,
people
it's
realized,
almost Thanksgiving. They ever going to take down that?
right, and so then it was like, so that's sad. You hear stories all the time of people that will pitch, and these are probably more urban legends, the rest of these. But hitchhikers, will get picked up and someone will drop them off near a cemetery and they turn around to, wave and they're gone. There's a ton of those types of stories. There's one where, a college heard that there was going to be a massacre on Halloween, but it's never actually happened and it never really said what college, and there, to this day, and I think this was like back in the 60s or 70s, to this day there are still some colleges that will say be careful on Halloween because we don't know if this is actually going to happen. So those are, there's even modern traditions-ish, urban legends that go on.
There's still some other ones that we can get into. What I have next up is bats with Halloween. I know people see pictures or like you get Halloween decorations, you see bats and stuff like that.
I've got bats in my front room.
Part of the reason that is another thing that people believed were familiars for witches. It was also said that seeing a bat on Halloween was considered to be an ominous sign. One of the myths was that if a bat was spotted flying around your house 3 times, it meant that someone in the house was going to die soon. Another myth was that if the bat actually flew into your house on Halloween, it was a sign that your house was haunted and that the ghost had actually let the bat into your house.
Oh, all right.
Another thing with bats, though, like with the Samhain celebration with the giant bonfires, it would attract a lot of insects, and the insects would attract the bats.
Yeah.
So let me tell you a bat story. When I was 8, my parents built a house and we moved into this house. And I was dead asleep in my bed, and we had a fireplace, and apparently a bat flew in under the eaves, down the chimney, and was flying around the house. And my parents are trying to get the bat out of the house, and they're chasing it around with a broom. Apparently they turned the light on. We're running around my room for about 10 minutes, and I am oblivious. I wake up in the morning, and my mom said, "Do you remember us coming in your room, running around?" I was like, "Nope." So apparently my house is haunted because my parents' house.
We've been to your house.
But
your parents says it is haunted.
They have
so
3 ghosts.
it's possible that they let the bat in.
They put chicken wire up at the top of under the eaves so they don't get bats in their house anymore.
Well, that's good.
Cool.
Because that's the last thing I'd want is a bat flying around my house.
Right?
Bats have rabies. I have no idea.
Yeah, before I had children, I was a pretty sound sleeper though.
Spiders, another animal associated with Halloween.
These are the creepiest. I hate spiders.
I do not like spiders at all, but I did buy a dead tarantula in a glass case, and it is displayed proudly on Brandy's TV stand.
That's cool.
Not at my house.
I had a friend send me a picture of someone, I don't even know where they were, but someone's Halloween decor was a gigantic spider on top of their house, kind of an animatronic that would creep down on, and they said, "Is that too much?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, that is too much. That is so too much."
Kids will just walk by it this year.
Nope.
They'll have all the candy left over.
So spiders, another thing that was believed to be kind of like a familiar of a witch, is another reason why this is kind of associated with Halloween. It's one of the superstitions was that if a spider falls onto a candlelit lamp and is consumed by the flame,
yay!
burn it. So if a spider fell on your lamp and burned, that meant a witch was nearby.
Oh, onion!
And if you spot a spider on Halloween, it means that the spirit of a deceased loved one is watching over you. So it could be a good thing. If you see a spider on Halloween, that means that you have a family member that's passed is there watching over you. So spiders aren't necessarily as bad.
I still don't want them in my house.
I've become kind of Buddhist, I guess, with spiders, because my wife freaks out and I'm like, the spider killer. But it's like, lately I'll take like a glass and I'll trap them on the wall and then slide a paper underneath it and walk outside and just catch and release. I've heard spiders are actually kind of good for your ecosystem inside your house, eating the other bugs. So
if you're trying to grow a garden like Deanna's, the spiders are going to kill the insects.
Yeah, the mice.
So. Right. Yeah, back to our gardening. So I have made a pact with the spiders in this area. As long as they stay outside and are not poisonous, they can live. The poisonous ones have to die. Every September they die.
Yeah, I actually saw a black widow in our garage probably 2 or 3 months ago, and I know they're fairly common in this area, but that's the first time I've ever seen a black widow. And at first I just thought it was just a normal spider, and then as it started to move around,
and you're like, no,
you could see the red hourglass shape on its abdomen. And I was like, "Oh crap! That's one I want to get rid of."
Yeah. So we had my bug sprayer come last year. I think it was last year, and he sprayed. And I went outside later, and the ones that I found 11 black widows.
Wow!
You don't have him come last year. You had him come last year, and then
he comes twice a year. He comes in April and September.
Bi-monthly.
Anyway. If spiders want to live and they're unpoisonous, they have to stay outside. If you're a black widow, you're gone.
What if the black widow is seen on Halloween? That could be your aunt.
Well, she should have known the pact and not come.
But Krista's awesome.
She wouldn't come as a black widow.
You don't know.
She would come as a happy, sparkly butterfly.
Wolf spider. So now that I've mentioned all of these things that deal with witches, so I'll get into witches and why they're part of Halloween. And this also originates back to pagan times, with a pagan goddess actually known as the crone, who was honored during Samhain. And right as I did that, my page refreshed it and moved it. The crone was honored during this time. And she was also known as the Old One and the Earth Mother, and she symbolized wisdom, change, and the turning of the seasons. Now, when you think about witches, you see the old, green-faced, cackling witch.
Cauldron, making potions, and creepy.
Cauldrons are actually next on my list. And they actually believe that after death, all souls went into the crone's cauldron, which symbolized the Earth's mother's womb. There the souls would wait reincarnation as the goddesses stirring allowed for new souls to enter the cauldron and old souls to be reborn. That image of the cauldron of life has now been replaced with steaming, bubbling, ominous brew. So it's kind of weird to see how some of the stuff back in old pagan times were actually good things, and just over the years they've morphed into these terrible evil things.
Spooky, creepy.
Broomsticks.
And part of that goes with religion and propaganda of trying to oust old religions and old beliefs with new religions and beliefs by making them less tenable.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, when you mix in other religions and then when you get into more modern times, commercialism.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how much more commercialized Halloween has gotten just the last 5 to 10-ish years. I remember when I was little, you'd go to the nickel and dime store, and your costume was literally a plastic mask.
Yeah.
And a little plastic drape.
Yeah, it was like an apron, a plastic apron, and you'd sweat underneath those things, and you couldn't breathe in the mask because there's like 2 tiny pinholes for nostrils. But
you thought you were so cool.
Oh, man.
You were Little Bo Peep. And then I remember putting up Halloween decorations, which consisted of probably 5 or 6 different cardboard, just kind of cutouts, just kind of like that stock
paper,
like a poster board thickness. And we had a couple witches and a couple pumpkins, and we'd hang them up. And I mean, right now my front yard looks like you need a ticket to get to the front door.
You've got it really nicely decorated. I like the way that it looks.
Thank you. My favorite, I bought these candles. They're LED candles, and they flicker.
That's cool.
And we hung them up with
line. Yeah, I saw that up front. So it looks like the Great Hall in Hogwarts with the floating candles.
The floating candles and floating witches' hats. That's my favorite part.
We did that at one of the places that I worked around Halloween. Is we'd kind of break the floor that we worked on into different sections. And one year, one of the sections was kind of a Harry Potter theme, and they had a bunch of floating candles, and I thought that was kind of cool.
I actually had to drop my daughter off somewhere yesterday, and the people there, it's a like townhomes, and they're 3 stories, and each story has a wrought iron balcony, and one family had gotten skeletons, and it's kind of a cool pirate theme, and these skeletons are climbing up all the balconies and climbing down all the balconies, and it's really cool.
That sounds fun.
Did you know Halloween is actually the second most profitable holiday of the year?
I don't
behind
doubt
Christmas.
I believe that.
I don't doubt that at all.
Yeah, it's a lot to do with the expensiveness of costumes nowadays, and then candy. I mean, because people are dropping like hundreds of dollars to buy a Halloween costume.
Well, I remember even 5-10 years ago, I took a class, and it was about economics, and each week we had to bring in some sort of news article. And I remember one week I was talking about the rise in the value of chocolate. How it's becoming more and more scarce, and so over the next few years, the value of chocolate would slowly increase. And I mean, I think we're even seeing that now. It's like, you could buy a huge bag of chocolate candy for like $1 or $2. Now it's like you're dropping $15 on little fun-sized Snickers and Milky Ways, and it's getting ridiculous. But yeah.
Well, and then the decor too. I think people are getting so into decor. If I had just like unlimited funds, I could easily go drop $2,000 or $3,000 today.
So easily, yeah. There's so much stuff I'd love to buy, but yeah. My wallet says no.
You like to eat and have the roof over your head too?
I enjoy eating things other than ramen. And
you need to have a I that you can decorate.
I like having Wi-Fi.
Wi-Fi's overrated.
Yeah, I don't know.
I wouldn't be able to go through my list if we didn't have Wi-Fi down here. So another thing associated with Halloween is the witches' broomsticks, and part of that was the old elderly women, the introverted women, were often accused of witchcraft, and they were poor and couldn't afford horses, so they navigated through the woods on foot with the help of walking sticks, which were sometimes substituted by brooms. Now, the folklore tells us that during nighttime ceremonies, witches rubbed a flying potion on their bodies, closed their eyes, and felt as though they were flying. The hallucinogenic ointment, which caused numbness, rapid heartbeat, and confusion, gave them the illusion that they were soaring through the sky.
I recently watched the movie The Witch, and it takes place in like colonial Massachusetts. You know what we're talking about, right?
Know. I've seen that once, and I don't know if I'll ever watch it again.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was it scary or stupid?
It was a slow burn.
It was a slow burn. And it was realistic.
But it was very realistic about how people were accused of practicing witchcraft. And, one of the protagonists, she's a little 14-year-old girl, and she's chastised and shunned by her family after all these deaths occur. But like one of the final scenes is she comes upon a coven of witches that are dancing naked around a bonfire, and she joins them. She takes off her clothes, and like the final image is she's got her eyes closed and she's floating up into the trees.
And they're actually chanting in Latin.
Yeah.
Oh, that would be creepy.
So, yeah.
This is the same people that I believe did Hereditary and Midsommar.
Oh, okay.
So if you've seen either one of those movies, it's
kind of the same feel, same.
Very realistic.
I liked Midsommar.
Very somber.
I thought Midsommar was good.
I need to find that one.
Oh man, it's on Netflix.
I'll have to watch it.
Yeah, it's really good.
So one more of the older traditions. I do have a couple others, but I just want to go into the colors of Halloween, which are black and orange.
And purple.
And they stem from pagan celebrations of the autumn and the harvest, with orange symbolizing the colors of the crops and the turning leaves, while black marks the death of summer and the changing season. Now, over time, green, purple, and yellow have also been introduced as colors of Halloween. You know, apples are actually also a part of Halloween.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, do tell.
Well, candy apples and bobbing for apples.
Bobbing for apples? So what's the bobbing for apples come from?
Well, in ancient times, it was viewed as a sacred fruit.
A sacred feud?
A feud?
Yeah.
Sacred feud. Well, I think Deanne already talked about the predicting in the future, but when the bobbing for apples comes in, is the game was used for fortune telling on Halloween night. It was believed that the first person to pluck an apple from the water-filled bucket without using their hands would be the first one to marry. If the bobber lucked out and caught an apple on the first try, it meant that they would experience true love, with those who got an apple after many tries would be fickle in their romantic endeavors.
Boy, those colonial Victorians were really hung up on getting married, getting hitched, weren't they?
That's all the girls
Let's play dating games. Come on. Spin the bottle. I'm sure that has Halloween ties.
Probably. Well, another thing with apple is if a girl put it under her pillow at night, she would dream about her future husband.
Of course. I should have
known. A more common or a more modern myth with apples is the razor blades. There's a lot of
razor blades and needles inside.
They always tell you to inspect your candy for needle holes.
You could go take it to the hospital and get it x-rayed.
But yeah, those are actual Halloween like myths and legends.
That's really interesting. Yeah,
I love
this is some good stuff.
It is absolutely my favorite Halloween, or my favorite holiday, because it's so, you can be so creative with it.
It's a fun holiday.
You've been listening to the Supernatural Hour at AdvancedParanormal.com. The Supernatural Hour is part of the Radio Ronin network, found at RadioRonin.com. Copyright 2021 by Advanced Paranormal Services.